guys, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be my review of Lois the Witch by Elizabeth Gaskell. I'll put it there. And I definitely recommend this book. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it, but I always forget how much I like Elizabeth Gaskell's writing. Her style is definitely more warm, comforting, intimate. I don't know if I'm describing it right, but I love it. It's so easy for me to get wrapped up in her books, and I definitely want to read more of her stuff. So if you have recommendations, put them in the comments. I have read North and South. Obviously, it's one of the more popular ones and has a adaptation that's pretty popular too. So I do know some of her writing, but this one kind of caught me off guard because I didn't think I would enjoy a story that's kind of surrounding the Salem witch trials, if you don't know what Lois the Witch is about. And that period in history is pretty dark, and definitely this is going to be not a spooky, dark, scary read. It's going to be more about the darkness of human nature and the kind of hysteria and mob mentality that can lead to something like the Salem witch trials. So I definitely recommend it if you're interested in something like that. Check it out. I really, really liked, the characters, the story, the atmosphere, the setting. It's all different to me because it's told from the point of view of a English person. And with that, you don't, if you're learning about the Puritans or stuff that has happened in in America in the early years, it's going to be mainly told from an American perspective. But this is interesting because Lois is English. She comes in with a very different perspective and a different feeling towards things like, the king and the monarchy and all that the Puritans do not agree with. So I like that perspective. This is going to be 4 stars. I will definitely recommend it. And then I will talk spoilers. So if you haven't read it and you don't want to know the spoilers, check it out and then come back and listen to my spoiler talk. So Lois the Witch starts off with Lois. She is orphaned recently. Both of her parents died one after the other, and they are very poor. Her dad was a pastor, or they call him something else, but it amounts to a pastor of a small church. So she's sent to her uncle in America to live with him and his family. She doesn't know anything about them. There was a rift between the families, and obviously her father being a pastor in England, and then the Puritans leaving because of religious persecution, etc. They had that separation. So on her way to live with her uncle, you kind of get the first taste of something is happening, something foreboding, something kind of foreshadowing these darker events to come, where Lois and her companions are discussing things that have happened recently in America. So it's going to be like Indians and pirates and possible witchcraft. And Lois describes an encounter she had when she was little with a witch in England, or a supposed witch. And she says she saw the old woman. They were drowning her, basically. That's one of the ways that they killed witches, or discovered if you were a witch. So the witch saw Lois and said, "Your father," who was a pastor, "didn't make any attempts to save me." And of course, I'm paraphrasing. "He didn't make any attempts to save me. And when you're accused, no one is going to save you." So that's your first, oh, okay, there's something going on here. It's dark. It's, what's going to happen. But you kind of, can see the writing on the wall for Lois. So she goes to her uncle's, estate, I guess, but not really. I mean, they have money, so they're pretty well off for Puritans at that time. And she's living there. The uncle is very sick, and the aunt is kind of this strong personality, runs things. She's very, against Lois in a lot of ways because she doesn't like that she's English and she's bringing her English ways to their house. And she's a very, God-fearing Puritan woman, and she's thinks a lot of herself. So the aunt doesn't really like her. The cousins are, the youngest is Prudence, and then there's Faith and Manasseh. So Prudence is described as being kind of mischievous, however you say it. And it's already kind of implied that there's maybe something wrong with her. Sometimes she's really nice, sometimes she's really awful, which could be a normal kid, but the way the story goes, I feel like they're saying up that there's something maybe a little off with her. As with all of the siblings, Manasseh is the oldest. He's very brooding and kind of withdrawn. And then Faith is similarly, withdrawn. She's not super close with her cousin, but the one that Lois feels the closest to is Faith, because they're the closest in age. So as the story progresses, the uncle gets sicker and sicker and eventually dies, and then that makes Manasseh the head of the household. And here's our second, kind of foreshadowing. where Manasseh tells her that he wants to marry her, and Lois is like, no. Like, I don't feel anything for you. I don't want to be with you. I have somebody back home who's actually, might come and get me. Like, the only reason we didn't get married is because I'm poor. But he, once he has his money and his wealth, he might just come and pick me up and I'm going to be his wife. Like, that's the only person I'm interested in. I don't want to be with you. And Manasseh tells her that she has to be with him. He's like heard voices and he's seen visions and heard from God that in order for her to avoid doom, basically, she has to be with him, and that he has seen her death. And all of this can be avoided if she marries him. So that's a little bit more foreshadowing. And throughout all this time, there's little whispers and things happening. There's an Indian woman who works for the family, and she's possibly involved with, I don't know, they kind of say like Indian magic, or, they would say witchcraft, but they mean like things that are part of the Indian culture that they just don't understand. So she's maybe, saying little chants over her pot while she's cooking, and, what is she really doing? So there's a little bit of suspicion already beginning with this woman. And just with the surrounding area, like there's been some things happening where pastors have, one of the pastors was set up, and there was some, like division in the community about whether it would be this pastor or this pastor. And, the group that finally won, like there's some dissatisfaction there. So it's all like, there's a little bit of discontent. Then winter comes, and it's a very bad winter, and this is when the whispers of witchcraft start to happen, because two of the pastor's kids have like convulsions and they start writhing on the floor, and they're, oh, it's so terrible, and they're shaking, and like it was obviously they were possessed by the devil. I don't know if this is supposed to be like they had some kind of actual seizure, or if this is the beginnings of like what would have actually happened with people just faking this to try and then accuse other people of witchcraft. As horrible as that may sound, because they would know that basically witchcraft, like if you accuse someone of witchcraft back then, it was almost certainly going to be a death sentence. There were people that were accused that confessed after probably being tortured, that were spared, but a lot of them, as soon as they were convicted of witchcraft, they would have been killed. So yeah, I guess don't cross anybody back then, but that was kind of what started this, is that, a lot of resentment and jealousies and things that had already been brewing in the community then led to a lot of accusations. And unfortunately, Lois's time is coming, because she realizes that her cousin, Faith, is in love with the pastor that was kind of ousted. And he's back, and he's been brought back into the fold, and everything's like okay now. So he's back in town, but he had been gone for a while because he had kind of gone up against their current leader. And so she realizes Faith is very into this guy, and she tries to help her. She's definitely like on Faith's side. She's not interested in marriage. Like I said, she's been already told by Manasseh that like he wants to marry her. She doesn't want to. She has her man back in England that she wants to be with. So unfortunately for her, Faith doesn't believe this. There's some encounters that, she has, and Faith is a very jealous individual. And also Prudence, the younger cousin, is very temperamental. She will accuse Lois of things and say things if Lois does anything she doesn't like. So Lois one time is talking about things that they did in England and around Halloween, and so Prudence freaks out when she hears these things that they did around Halloween, and says that Lois is a witch, and that she's been, brought up with witchcraft in her family, and it's all, she's really evil. And this is all like just Prudence being basically a bad kid and being mean and nasty and having, this like attitude towards Lois. But it's all treated very seriously, because once witchcraft is brought up, and if you have anything where it's like you've been let the devil in, then you need to be purged from the community. So this goes on, and of course, with these little kids, suddenly having these spasms and freaking out, someone's about to get accused. And the first person is an Indian servant who's in a different household, and she ends up getting hanged as a witch. And it's sad and tragic, because obviously there was, no other way. Like this woman, being that she's not a convert to, she's not a Puritan. Like basically she's not converted to their religion. So she's seen already as a heathen, already as somebody who's not really in the community. She's outside of it. So there was no way, once she was accused, that she was, even with her confessions, and she confesses to many, many horrible things, and that she was having secret meetings with the devil and witches and wizards and all this different stuff. And of course, this is after probably that she was, tortured. But that's what happened. She is hanged, and then the, hysteria is continuing. And Faith believes, for whatever reason, that she sees, Faith believes that Lois, when she sees her talking with this pastor guy that she's interested in, immediately turns Faith into like, Lois is evil. Lois is taking my man. She's super jealous. So when Prudence similarly gets a bad attitude towards Lois and accuses her in front of everybody of being a witch, Faith just doesn't stand up for her. And then it's revealed, which you have a lot of like things that, you know what's happening in the story. Manasseh also is kind of crazy. And the aunt has been hiding this because he's the head of the household and he's her favorite and he's, her wonderful child that she loves so much. But he is like, that's why he's been talking about visions and seeing Lois's future and her death, and she has to marry him and all that. And so when all this happens and Manasseh kind of goes crazy and Prudence accuses Lois and she's like, rolling around on the floor and writhing and, saying Lois is a witch, like everyone just believes it immediately. Like there's, Lois is pretty much doomed. And the final like bit of the story is her time in prison, her trying to tell them she's not, and she never does confess, which is, kind of like her strength as a character, that she knows she's not a witch and that she's not going to lie even to save herself. Because they do tell her like, we might, which you probably weren't, but they say that they might have spared her if she had confessed and then told all the other people, tell us all the other people that are involved with your witchcraft, and she doesn't. And it's very sad and tragic, but like, I feel like it's so well done. Like Lois is written really well and the other characters are written very believably. You totally see where Lois got here. And of course, then she remembers, what she was told, that she would have nobody, you remember at the beginning where the witch told her, when you're accused, no one is going to come and save you. And she, dreams of the guy in England coming and rescuing her. And you kind of have this like, oh, will she be saved at the end? But she's not. At the end, actually, the Indian that was the servant in the house that she lived in is also accused, and she gets sent to to be hanged with Lois, and Lois comforts her and tries to help her. They are sent to be hanged together. Lois says something about her mother right before she dies, and then she's hanged, and that's the end. But we do get a little bit of an after story, I guess, of, what happened as far as Lois's man from England does come and try and get her, and of course is too late. And it's very sad and tragic, and he finds out what happened, and he never forgives them for what they did to Lois and how they killed her. And he talks about, there's time, like later he's informed that, people repented, and, they said that it was, what they did was wrong, and Lois is going to be, like all the witches who were condemned, they're going to, like basically, I don't know how you would say it, they're taking away that condemnation, like they're going to say that they were wrong. And all the Puritans and her aunt and all the different people have signed a note saying that they were the ones that were wrong and that they accused people and it was false. So that's the end. And basically it's her, the guy that she was, wanted to be with in England, saying like, I'll never forgive them. Whatever they say, it won't bring Lois back. And that was my feeling at the end. I was like, no, I will not forgive. Like, how dare you? But I appreciate this book for its like exploration of these darker themes, like the mob mentality, the hysteria, how easily these like isolated groups get whipped up into a frenzy of, you're not one of us. And there's no one to speak up for them. There's no one who will go to, there's no one who will defend them against these accusations, because as soon as you defend them, and it's like, well, are you a witch? Are you, has Satan got a hold of you? It's very dark, but also it obviously happened, and it's something that I think, you should, like, it should be studied more. It's so interesting, and part of that, like, darker side of human nature where you're so quick to jump on the bandwagon of accusation just so you get that off of you. Like, oh no, I'm not a witch. Like, she's a witch. I definitely recommend this short story. It's very well written. I think it's perfect for October with the witchy Salem witch trials, darker themes. Like I said, not scary or, like it's not horror. And in a way, it's kind of horrible. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a single lady back in those days. Let's just put it that way. And I feel like that's part of the thing that's, not as explored, but is definitely implied as like a lot of these single women, it's like you're just suspicious. Like you're just suspicious because you're a single woman, and the woman that she talks about in the beginning is just a woman who lived outside the community who was didn't have a husband, or didn't have a family. So if you don't have that, you have no one to defend you. And it's like, okay, so yeah, don't be single in Salem. Like that should be what you'd walk away with from this story. Like all the single ladies avoid Salem. Um, anyway, that's what I thought about Lois the Witch. And if you have any book recommendations for me, let me know in the comments. I am starting Lilith today, and hopefully we'll have my review up for that soon. And I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.